The day after the hunt, the Xylar observation station was unusually quiet. In the halls, whispers replaced laughter. Even the youngest hunters were silent, their pride shaken. For the first time, they were unsure. A human, one human, had not only survived their most complex hunt but had done so with calm intelligence and strategy. Captain Elena Rios walked through the corridors, flanked by a few curious Xylar who were not quite ready to leave her side. Kieran watched from the observation deck, his eyes following her movements. He had spent centuries hunting the deadliest creatures in the galaxy. He had never expected to see a species that could rival instinct and strength with intellect alone. "Elena," Kieran said finally, his voice carrying over the metal walkway, "come to the observation deck. I want to understand your methods more clearly." Elena nodded. She had anticipated this. The Xylar were proud, yes, but they were also intelligent. If she explained carefully, they might begin to see why humans were truly formidable. The observation deck overlooked a section of the station that displayed live holographic images of multiple planets. Predators of all sizes moved in simulated habitats, showing behavior patterns, hunting techniques, and survival strategies. Kieran gestured to the images. "These creatures," he said, "we have studied for decades. We know their strengths, their weaknesses, every detail. We dominate them. Yet you survived where others would not. How?" Elena walked slowly along the glass railing, her eyes scanning the creatures. "You focus on power, speed, and instinct. That works well against most prey. But some creatures, some species, survive by adapting quickly, by changing behavior unexpectedly, by using the environment. Humans are like that. We survive because we learn, we plan, and we adapt faster than others expect." Kieran's glowing eyes narrowed. "You are saying that humans think faster than us?" Elena smiled faintly. "Not faster exactly, but differently. We notice patterns, understand behavior, and anticipate outcomes. We do not rely on strength alone. We use creativity, tools, teamwork, and intelligence to survive in dangerous environments." Another Xylar, younger and less confident, tilted his head. "But you are small, fragile, and unarmed. How can intelligence alone be enough?" Elena crouched slightly as if speaking to a student. "Strength is not just in muscle or speed. Strength can be in patience, observation, and making the right decision at the right time. Sometimes the right strategy saves more lives than raw power ever could. Humans have survived ice storms, deserts, earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, and predators far stronger than ourselves. We survived because we learned, adapted, and worked together." Kieran remained silent for a long moment, staring at the human. Finally, he asked the question that had been building inside him since the hunt. "Have you ever hunted something that could learn as you learn? That could anticipate your moves, change its strategy instantly, and use your own strength against you?" Elena paused. Her eyes met Kieran's, calm and steady. "Yes, many times. That is what makes survival a test. Not just of power, but of intelligence. Humans survive because we expect the unexpected. We prepare for what others cannot see. And when we face something stronger, faster, or deadlier than ourselves, we do not panic. We adapt." The observation deck was silent. Even the other Xylar hunters stopped murmuring. No one had ever described hunting in such a way. To them, hunting was a test of dominance, a measure of strength and courage. The human had introduced a concept they had never considered. Intelligence, creativity, and foresight could be more powerful than claws, speed, or strength. Kieran finally spoke, his voice quiet but intense. "Your species is underestimated. You are smaller, weaker, slower. Yet you survive. That is remarkable." Elena nodded. "It is not remarkable because of strength. It is remarkable because of thinking, learning, and adapting. That is what humans do." Another Xylar, a female named Saren, stepped forward cautiously. "So your kind does not fight blindly? You use the environment, your tools and knowledge instead?" "Yes," Elena replied. "And not just to fight. We use these things to survive, to protect each other, to achieve goals that would be impossible with strength alone." Kieran's eyes softened, but his pride still lingered. "It seems different, but effective." Elena took a step closer to the holographic displays. "Think of it this way. You have hunted creatures that follow instinct. You plan, you strike, and you succeed because you are stronger and faster. But what if the creature can think, adapt, and use your own tactics against you? Then power alone is not enough. You need intelligence, creativity, and strategy. That is what humans bring." The young Xylar gasped softly. "So, Humans can defeat predators stronger than themselves without brute force? Elena nodded. Exactly. We survive because we are unpredictable. We solve problems quickly. We notice patterns, create plans, and adjust as needed. That is why humans have thrived in countless dangerous environments while others fall. Kieran's glowing eyes studied her closely. And in this arena, yesterday, you applied these methods? Elena's lips curved into a small smile. Yes, I observed, anticipated, and adapted. I used the environment, the creature's instincts, and even your expectations to survive. Strength alone does not win every challenge. Thinking, creativity, and patience can be just as powerful. Saren tilted her head, clearly fascinated. And you did not harm the creatures? No, Elena said calmly. The hunt is not about killing. It is about survival and understanding. Humans respect life, and we use intelligence rather than force whenever possible. Strength is useful, but it is not the only solution. Kieran took a deep breath. You are teaching us something unexpected. That humans are not weak as we believed. That you can survive and perhaps thrive where others fail. Elena nodded. Yes, strength is not only in muscles or speed. Strength can be in the mind, in careful planning, in creativity, and in teamwork. That is why humans endure. The other Xylar looked at each other in silence. Some appeared stunned. Some looked skeptical. But all were thinking. For centuries they had measured worth by physical skill, by the fall of prey, by raw dominance. The human had challenged all of that with intelligence and strategy alone. Kieran finally spoke again, his tone serious. Perhaps there is more to your species than we realized. We have underestimated humans for too long. Elena stepped back, remaining calm. It is not about underestimation. It is about understanding. Every species has strengths. Humans survive because we see patterns, learn quickly, and use what we have to our advantage. That is the real power of our kind. A soft hum echoed through the observation deck as the holographic creatures moved. Elena studied them quietly, as if seeing lessons in their behavior. She had learned much from the Xylar hunts, and now they had learned from her as well. Saren spoke quietly, almost to herself. So, survival is not only about strength. It is about intelligence, creativity, and adaptation. Yes, Elena replied. Exactly. That is why humans thrive in the galaxy. We endure challenges that would defeat others, not because we are strongest, but because we think, adapt, and learn faster than most can anticipate. Kieran stepped closer to the human captain, his eyes serious. You have changed something here today. Not by force, not by speed, but by thought. You have opened our eyes to a new kind of strength. Elena smiled gently. It is not about changing you. It is about showing that there are many forms of strength in the universe. Not all creatures are measured by power alone. Sometimes the greatest strength is in thinking, observing, and adapting. For a long moment silence reigned. The Xylar considered her words, their pride balanced by the undeniable truth they had witnessed. They had hunted the galaxy's deadliest creatures. Yet this human had survived in a situation that should have overwhelmed her. And she had done so without force, without violence, and without fear, relying entirely on her mind, her creativity, and her adaptability. Finally, Kieran spoke, his voice steady and respectful. Perhaps humans are not what we expected.
Perhaps your kind has a strength we have not yet understood.
That is impressive. Elena inclined her head. It is not about impressing. It is about surviving, learning, and adapting. That is the true power of humans. And one day perhaps it will change the way the galaxy sees us. As she left the observation deck, Elena knew something important had shifted. The Xylar, proud and confident, had begun to question their assumptions. They had begun to see that survival and strength could take many forms, and that humans, small and fragile though they appeared, possessed a power that could not be ignored. And somewhere deep inside, Elena felt a quiet satisfaction. The galaxy had seen the strength of the Xylar. Now it had glimpsed the quiet, unassuming, and unstoppable strength of humanity. The shuttle descended through the thick, swirling atmosphere of the distant planet. Its surface was rugged and unpredictable, covered in jagged cliffs, dense forests, and fast-flowing rivers. Elena Rios gripped the edge of her seat, scanning the terrain. The Xylar had brought her here to witness a live hunt, one involving creatures so dangerous that even seasoned Xylar hunters approached with caution. This planet is home to the Krylith, Kieran said, his glowing eyes scanning the displays on the shuttle console. They are fast, clever, and deadly. Many Xylar hunters have tried to track them. Some have not returned. You will see why. Elena nodded calmly. Thank you. I will observe carefully. The shuttle landed on a flat plateau. Elena stepped out, the alien soil crunching under her boots. She glanced at the Xylar hunters around her, proud, confident, and fully armed with weapons designed to kill. Their culture revolved around the hunt, and they believed nothing could match their skill. They did not yet understand that survival could take forms beyond raw power. The Kralith were already visible in the distance, moving through the trees with speed and grace. Their sleek bodies were covered in tough scales, and their multi-jointed legs allowed them to leap with incredible precision. Their heads turned constantly, scanning for threats. Elena noted their movements carefully, studying patterns and anticipating behavior. The hunt began. The Xylar leapt forward, their claws and weapons striking in perfect coordination. They relied on speed, power, and instinct, moving like a single unstoppable force. The Kralith scattered, some running, others leaping to higher ground, always aware of their predators. Elena did not rush. She took a deep breath and assessed the situation. Unlike the Xylar, she could not rely on strength alone. Instead, she scanned the terrain, noting areas of cover, narrow passages, and natural traps. She studied the Kralith's behavior, noticing small details, the way they paused before leaping, the subtle shifts in weight, the predictable angles they took when cornered. A young Kralith leapt toward a cliff edge, preparing to jump down. Elena moved quickly but carefully, placing a small net device in its path. As it landed, the net deployed, capturing the creature without harm. The other Xylar watched in surprise. They were used to killing swiftly, yet here was a human using the environment, intelligence, and tools to achieve the same result without unnecessary force. Kieran narrowed his eyes. Impressive. But luck will not sustain her. Elena did not reply. She continued to move with deliberate precision. She used fallen logs, rocky outcrops, and shadows to conceal her position. When a Kralith tried to flank her, she redirected it using a simple lever system from her pack, guiding it toward a trap she had observed earlier in the terrain. Each move was calculated, each action considered, each outcome anticipated. The Xylar hunters began to notice the difference. Where they relied on reflex, Elena relied on observation. Where they struck blindly, she planned carefully. Where they acted with aggression, she acted with strategy. Slowly, the tide of the hunt began to shift, not in raw force, but in clever manipulation and adaptation. One Xylar lunged to intercept her, aiming to demonstrate dominance and correct what he considered a mistake. Elena remained calm. She dropped to the ground, rolled under his attack, and activated a small projected barrier from her pack. The barrier redirected his momentum, causing him to land off balance. He looked up at her, momentarily stunned. The Kralith seized the opportunity, moving away from danger. Elena followed, observing, analyzing, and using the environment to her advantage. She was patient, never rushed, always aware of every detail. The other Xylar began to realize that this human was not just surviving. She was controlling the hunt in a way they had never seen. At one point, a group of Kralith cornered Elena near a rocky ravine. The Xylar moved in, ready to strike, but she held up a hand. With precise timing, she activated a reflective device, sending sunlight into the eyes of the predators. They recoiled, giving her just enough space to slip between them and into a narrow canyon. Using rocks and vines, she created a small barrier that forced the Kralith to stop and reassess their approach. Kieran's voice was low but tense.
How?
Elena did not answer immediately. She moved steadily, using every tool, every observation, every advantage the environment provided. She guided the creatures safely into areas where the Xylar could not reach without risking themselves. Slowly, she began to demonstrate that the human approach, observation, adaptation, intelligence, was as effective, if not more so, than sheer strength. The other Xylar murmured among themselves. They had never seen hunting approached like this. Strength and speed had always been paramount. But here was a human, weaker in size, slower in reflexes, yet outmaneuvering predators and hunters alike. Intelligence, creativity, and patience were proving to be just as valuable as physical power. A Kralith charged from behind, faster than expected. Elena leapt to the side and dropped a small net. It deployed perfectly, catching the creature's legs without injury. She calmly moved on, never breaking stride. The Xylar watched in awe. No one had taught her these methods. She relied entirely on observation, logic, and creativity, qualities that could not be predicted, measured, or easily countered. Kieran finally spoke aloud to the other hunters. Observe carefully. This is not luck, she is applying strategy in real time. She is not strong, but she is effective. Understand this, humans survive differently. They endure where others fail because they think, adapt, and use every resource wisely. Elena overheard and nodded slightly. She continued her movements, using the terrain to her advantage, guiding creatures safely into areas that limited danger, and subtly influencing the flow of the hunt. By the end, every Kralith had been contained safely, and the Xylar hunters were left astonished. The human had done what none of them expected. She had completed the hunt without injury, without lethal force, and without panic. She had survived not because she was stronger or faster, but because she was clever, observant, and adaptable. Kieran approached her slowly, his posture more thoughtful than ever. You have shown a method we did not consider. Humans do not dominate by strength, but they endure by intelligence and adaptability. That is remarkable. Elena inclined her head. It is not just humans. Every species has strengths. What makes humans special is that we rely on observation, learning, and adaptation. We survive challenges that would overwhelm others because we expect the unexpected. Saren, one of the younger hunters, stepped forward. So humans are not weak as we believed. They survive not by power but by thinking ahead, using tools and adapting to danger. Yes, Elena replied calmly, and that is why humans endure. We survive not by being the strongest but by being clever, flexible, and observant. Strength is one tool, intelligence is another, strategy is another. We combine all three. Kieran nodded slowly, finally acknowledging the truth he had been forced to see. Perhaps. Humans are stronger than we realized, not in muscle or speed, but in ways we cannot measure. Elena smiled faintly. Strength takes many forms. Sometimes the mind is the sharpest weapon. The Xylar hunters, who had always measured worth by raw power and hunting skill, were quiet. They had witnessed a human endure the impossible. They had seen a species not strong in the traditional sense, yet capable of outmaneuvering creatures designed to kill the galaxy's fiercest predators. They had seen ingenuity, patience, and strategy triumph where brute force alone would have failed. Kieran finally stepped back. Human, you have done more than survive. You have taught us something we cannot ignore. Perhaps strength is not only what we assumed. Perhaps it is also thinking, adapting, and understanding the environment. You have shown us a human advantage we did not anticipate. Elena nodded, her calm confidence unwavering. Humans endure because we see patterns, we learn, and we adapt. That is the true advantage, and it is something every species, no matter how strong, must respect. As she looked at the Xylar hunters, she realized that the live hunt had done more than test her skills. It had begun to reshape perceptions. The galaxy's most proud and skilled hunters were beginning to understand that humans possessed a form of strength they had never considered. And in that quiet realization, Elena felt a subtle victory. Humans might not be the fastest, the strongest, or the largest species in the galaxy, but in intelligence, adaptability, and ingenuity, they were formidable beyond measure. The Kralith moved safely in their habitats, and the Xylar observed in thoughtful silence. The human had done the impossible, survived a hunt designed for death, demonstrated strategy over strength, and earned the quiet respect of a species that valued domination above all. Elena stepped back, her eyes calm but observant. The hunt had ended. The lesson was clear. In a universe of predators, strength alone could not guarantee survival. The human mind, clever and adaptable, had become the ultimate advantage, and the Xylar, for the first time, were beginning to understand the quiet, unassuming, unstoppable power of humanity. The station was quiet after the hunt. The Xylar observation station, once alive with boasting and pride, now hummed with thoughtfulness. Even the youngest hunters moved more cautiously, their confidence tempered by what they had witnessed. For the first time in centuries, the Xylar were unsure of their assumptions. Captain Elena Rios walked through the halls with calm confidence. She had observed, adapted, and survived where the galaxy's deadliest hunters had expected her to fail. The Xylar had begun to see that survival was not only about strength, speed, or instinct, it was also about intelligence. adaptability, and creativity. Kieran met her on the observation deck, overlooking the alien worlds they had hunted together. The holographic creatures moved in their simulated habitats, alive and thriving. He gestured toward them. "Human," he said, his voice measured and serious. "You have changed the way we see survival. For centuries we have measured worth by strength, speed, and dominance. Yet you have shown us another path, one of intelligence, observation, and adaptation." Elena nodded. "It is not about changing you, Kieran. It is about showing that strength can take many forms. Humans survive in environments that would overwhelm others because we think, plan, and adapt. That is our advantage." Kieran's glowing eyes studied her closely. "You are remarkable, and yet you are only one of your kind." "Yes," Elena replied calmly, "but one human can show the potential of many. Humanity thrives because of collective thinking, learning, and adaptation. Every challenge teaches us, and every failure strengthens us. That is how we endure." Saren, standing nearby, spoke quietly. I did not believe it possible. Humans survive by thought and strategy. You are small, unarmed, and yet effective against predators that could destroy us." Elena smiled faintly. "Effectiveness is not measured by size or strength alone. It is measured by understanding, preparation, and creativity. That is what humans bring to survival." Kieran paced slowly, considering her words. "For centuries we have believed only in physical dominance, but you have shown us that intelligence and adaptability can surpass brute force. That is humbling." The younger hunters murmured among themselves. They had always boasted of victories over creatures far larger and deadlier than themselves. They had measured courage and skill by how efficiently a predator fell. Yet here was a human who had survived without killing, without brute force, and without fear. Her mind had guided her through dangers that would have overwhelmed any Xylar relying on instinct alone. Elena's gaze swept over the young hunters. "Survival is not about dominance. It is about understanding, observation, and adaptation. That is why humans endure in countless environments, from frozen tundras to blazing deserts. We survive because we use every tool at our disposal, our intelligence, our creativity, our teamwork." Kieran nodded slowly. "Perhaps it is time for the Xylar to reconsider our traditions. Hunting is not only about strength. It is also about strategy, patience, and understanding. You have shown us that clearly." Elena inclined her head. "Every species has strengths. Humans survive because we combine observation, learning, and adaptability with determination. That is our true advantage, and it is something even the strongest hunters cannot ignore." Saren stepped closer. Do you teach this to others of your kind?" "Yes," Elena replied. "We share knowledge, experience, and strategy. We learn from every challenge, every predator, every environment. That is how we grow stronger, not by brute force, but by thinking and adapting." Kieran studied her, a mixture of pride and respect in his expression. "You have earned our respect, Captain Elena Rios. Not by defeating us, but by demonstrating the power of intelligence and adaptability. Humans are formidable in ways we did not understand." Elena nodded quietly. "Thank you. It is not about being formidable. It is about surviving, learning, and understanding. That is what humans do best." The younger Xylar hunters exchanged glances. They had learned something they had never expected. Survival was not only a test of strength, but also a test of intelligence, strategy, and adaptability. For the first time, they began to see humans not as fragile, weak, or unremarkable, but as clever, resourceful, and capable. Kieran spoke again, his voice firm but thoughtful. "Human, your demonstration has changed the way we see life, hunting, and survival. Perhaps we have been wrong to rely solely on strength. Perhaps intelligence and adaptability are just as vital. You have earned our respect." Elena's lips curved into a faint smile. "Respect is earned not by violence, but by understanding, planning, and adapting. That is how humans thrive." The other hunters nodded silently. They had seen it firsthand. The human had survived the impossible, outmaneuvering predators that could have killed any of them. She had done so with calm observation, careful planning, and intelligent adaptation. She had turned what should have been weakness into strength, proving that humans possessed qualities the Xylar had never considered. Kieran gestured toward the observation deck. "Look at the creatures, human. You have guided us through the hunt without harming them. That is a rare skill among hunters." Elena stepped forward, watching the Kralith move safely in their habitats. Hunting is not always about killing. It is about understanding life, predicting behavior, and adapting to circumstances. Humans respect life, and we use intelligence and strategy to survive without unnecessary harm. That is our greatest strength, Saren spoke softly. I see now. Humans are not weak. They survive because they think, adapt, and learn. That is a strength we did not expect. Kieran's eyes glowed faintly as he regarded her. Human, your presence here has changed our perspective. We have always valued strength, speed, and instinct. But you have shown us a new kind of power, one based on intelligence, adaptability, and creativity. That is remarkable. Elena nodded calmly. It is not remarkable because of me alone. It is remarkable because humans survive and thrive in ways that are not always obvious. Strength comes in many forms, and the mind is one of the strongest tools a species can possess. The young Xylar hunters whispered among themselves, absorbing her words. Their culture, built on centuries of hunting and dominance, was beginning to shift. They realized that raw power was not the only measure of worth. Intelligence, strategy, and adaptability could surpass even the fiercest strength. Kieran finally stepped back, his expression one of quiet respect. Captain Elena Rios, humans are more than we believed. Your endurance, intelligence, and strategy have earned our respect. You have demonstrated a strength that cannot be measured in muscle or speed alone. Elena inclined her head. Thank you. Humans endure because we learn, adapt, and think. That is the advantage that allows us to survive challenges no matter how dangerous. The Xylar remained silent, thoughtful, and humbled. For the first time, they viewed humanity in a new light, not as fragile, weak, or unremarkable, but as clever, resourceful, and capable of extraordinary survival. Kieran's voice broke the silence. Perhaps we should study this human advantage more carefully. It may teach us lessons we have ignored for centuries. Your species may not be the strongest in body, but it is formidable in ways we never expected. Elena smiled faintly. Strength is not always physical. Endurance comes from intelligence, creativity, observation, and adaptation. Humans have survived because we combine these traits with determination. That is our true power. The young hunters nodded slowly, their pride tempered by the truth they had witnessed. They had observed a human survive the impossible, not with brute force but with intelligence, patience, and strategy. They understood now that the galaxy contained many forms of strength, and that humans possessed one of the most subtle and powerful forms of all. Kieran finally turned to Elena. You leave this station with more than our respect. You leave us with a new understanding of life, survival, and strength. Humans are remarkable. Your species has qualities we must learn to respect and study. Elena's lips curved into a quiet, confident smile. Respect is earned through action, understanding, and adaptability. That is what humans do. As she prepared to leave the station, Elena looked back at the Xylar. They had seen the human advantage firsthand, the power of intelligence, creativity, observation, and adaptability. She knew that their perception of humanity had changed forever. Kieran spoke one final time. Go, human. You have taught us something we will not forget. Strength is not always physical. Intelligence, strategy, and adaptability are just as vital. You have earned our respect, and that respect will endure. Elena stepped into her shuttle, calm and confident. She had not won with violence or speed, but with observation, intelligence, and adaptability. She had survived impossible challenges, guided creatures safely, and earned the respect of a species that valued strength above all else. As the shuttle rose into orbit, Elena looked at the alien worlds below. She knew humanity's quiet, unassuming strength had left its mark. In a galaxy filled with predators, humans might not be the strongest, the fastest, or the most deadly, but their minds, creativity, and adaptability made them truly formidable. And somewhere in the hearts of the Xylar, a quiet respect for humanity had been born, a respect that would endure long after Captain Elena Rios had returned to Earth. In the vast, dangerous universe, the human mind had proven its power, and for the first time, the galaxy knew that humanity could survive, and the starship Erebus drifted silently through the dark expanse of uncharted space. Stars sparkled like scattered diamonds against the black canvas, and distant nebulae painted streaks of violet and blue across the void. Xylar, a Vithari explorer, stood at the observation deck, his 4 eyes scanning the endless night. The Vithari were known for their logic, their calm, and their ability to calculate probabilities faster than any human mind. Emotions, especially fear, were considered a weakness, something to be studied but never truly experienced. And yet today felt different. Xylar's attention was drawn to a blinking signal on the ship's navigation console. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it carried a pattern that suggested distress. The algorithm confirmed what Xylar had already sensed. This was a human distress beacon, originating from a colony far beyond the mapped sectors of the galaxy. Humans were unpredictable, even reckless, but they were survivors. Xylar felt a spark of curiosity, a concept close to excitement, though he did not yet understand it fully. "Captain Mara," Xylar's voice echoed in the ship's bridge. "We are receiving a distress signal. Its coordinates place it on an uncharted planet, inhabited by human settlers." Captain Mara, a tall woman with determined eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, turned from her console. "Humans?" she asked. "Then we have no choice. If they're in danger, we go. These colonies are small, isolated. If drones or pirates get to them first, it won't be pretty." Xylar observed her carefully. Humans were fascinating, fragile yet unyielding, quick to act without fully understanding the consequences, yet somehow surviving against all odds. "Understood," he replied. "I will prepare the landing protocols. I must warn you, Captain, that my species prioritizes logic and safety. We may need to adapt our approach to match human unpredictability." Mara smiled a little wryly. "Adaptation is part of survival. Welcome to the human way, Xylar." The Erebus shifted its trajectory and accelerated toward the planet. Xylar felt an unfamiliar sensation deep within his chest, a tension he could not categorize. The closer they came, the more the signals intensified, pulsating with urgency. Xylar ran simulations of potential outcomes: human casualties, drone capabilities, environmental hazards. Each scenario ended in varying degrees of disaster. In all, he remained calm, logically. But beneath that calm, a new awareness began to stir, something the Vatari had no name for. The planet emerged from the darkness like a hidden jewel. Its surface was rugged, filled with rocky plateaus and deep canyons. Smoke rose from scattered human settlements, hinting at destruction. Xylar observed from the observation deck as Captain Mara activated the landing sequence. The shuttle detached from the main vessel, gliding through the thin atmosphere. Winds of turbulence buffeted the craft, but humans inside laughed and shouted, adjusting controls instinctively. Xylar analyzed their behavior. Irrational, unpredictable, yet effective. He felt intrigued. As the shuttle touched down, Xylar's sensors detected faint movements near the settlement's perimeter. Small figures darted between buildings, firing weapons at something invisible from his vantage point. He scanned the area and identified the attackers. Mechanical drones, sleek, black, and armed with plasma cannons. Their precision was terrifying. The humans' tactics, however, were chaotic, taking cover, attacking in small bursts, retreating and circling back. It made no logical sense, but somehow it slowed the drones. Xylar followed the humans cautiously, analyzing their every move. "Captain Mara," he said, "they are employing irregular combat patterns. Statistically, this is inefficient. I recommend a coordinated assault with calculated precision." Mara shook her head, brushing dust from her jacket. "Xylar, you can calculate all you want, but humans don't fight by logic alone. We fight with instinct, improvisation, and heart. Watch and learn." Xylar observed as Mara led a group of settlers through narrow alleyways, baiting the drones into traps they had set with improvised barricades. Explosions lit up the night, sending sparks flying. Xylar could calculate trajectories, measure damage potential, but it was impossible to predict every human action, and yet they survived each encounter. He noticed a young child no older than 7, trapped under a collapsed wall of metal and rubble. The child cried, unable to move while drones approached. Xylar's first instinct was to calculate the safest extraction path. His mind ran through dozens of variables: time, drone positioning, weight distribution, energy output. And yet he hesitated. A strange pull of emotion, something humans called urgency, drove him forward faster than logic demanded. Xylar moved with mechanical precision, lifting debris and shielding the child from incoming fire. He felt an unfamiliar heat in his chest, his senses sharp, his mind racing not only with calculations but with concern, anxiety, and fear. Fear. He realized he had never truly felt it before, not like this. It was sharp, immediate, and energizing, yet terrifying. The child looked up at him with wide eyes, clutching his arm. "Thank you," the small voice whispered. Xylar's chest tightened. He had saved the child, but the danger was far from over. The drones were still advancing, and the humans had not yet secured the perimeter. Captain Mara arrived beside him, firing at the drones with unerring accuracy. "Xylar, don't freeze, move. We need to push them back before more arrive." For the first time, Xylar acted not only with logic, but with instinct. He positioned himself to block an incoming attack, calculating probabilities as he moved, but also listening to the humans' shouts, responding to their cues in real time. The drones fired, plasma streaking across the ruins, and Xylar ducked, felt the heat of near misses, and surged forward. The strange new fear sharpened his focus rather than paralyzing him. After several tense minutes, the drones retreated, their formation disrupted by human ingenuity and Xylar's sudden adaptive strategies. The settlement was battered, but it had survived. Smoke rose from burned-out buildings, and the ground was littered with mechanical wreckage. Xylar stood amidst it all, chest heaving in a way that no Vithari should have experienced. Captain Mara clapped him on the shoulder. "Not bad for your first real fight. Xylar, you held your own." Xylar looked at her, then at the humans around him, and felt something unfamiliar: admiration, respect, and yes, lingering fear. Fear that this world, these people, and the challenges they faced were more dangerous than anything he had ever calculated. Yet he felt alive, more alive than he had ever been. As night settled over the colony, Xylar scanned the horizon. Distant stars shimmered, oblivious to the chaos below. And for the first time he realized that fear, raw and immediate, could be a guide, not just a warning. It could sharpen perception, strengthen decisions, and connect him to others in ways logic alone never could. He looked at Captain Mara, standing amidst her people, determined and unyielding. She had taught him the first lesson about humanity, that courage was not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. Xylar felt a flicker of anticipation. This was only the beginning. And somewhere deep inside, he welcomed it. The edge of the galaxy was dark, cold, and unforgiving. But Xylar, standing with humans for the first time, felt a strange thrill. Something unpredictable. Something real. Something terrifying. Something exhilarating. The adventure had begun. The sun barely peeked over the jagged mountains surrounding the human colony, casting long shadows across the uneven ground. Smoke still rose from the ruined buildings, twisting into the pale morning sky. Xylar moved cautiously through the streets, scanning every corner. His 4 eyes tracked the slightest movement, but he could not predict human unpredictability, nor the strange patterns in which they fought. Every time he thought he had a plan, the humans acted differently. Captain Mara and her team were already moving, directing survivors and coordinating defensive positions. She ran from one building to another, shouting instructions that often seemed chaotic but always achieved results. Xylar followed closely, noting the way humans relied on intuition as much as strategy. He still struggled to fully understand it. Logic alone could not anticipate the patterns, the risks, or the split-second decisions that kept them alive. "Xylar," Mara called, pointing to a cluster of drones advancing from the north ridge. "Cover the barricade. Finn and I will try to draw them toward the canyon." Xylar observed the drones. Their design was sleek and deadly. Each drone had reinforced armor plating and rapid-firing plasma cannons. Any direct confrontation would be lethal, but the humans had already rigged traps, explosive charges hidden along narrow alleys. Calculating optimal defensive maneuvers, Xylar moved with precision, yet felt something new creeping through his mind. Tension. He recognized the feeling, but it had never been this sharp before. Humans called it fear. As he approached the barricade, he saw the first wave of drones fire upon the settlement. Plasma streaked across walls, igniting wooden supports and metal structures alike. One explosion sent shards flying dangerously close to Xylar. His sensors recorded every possible trajectory, every risk factor. But instinct, an alien concept he had never used, urged him to act immediately. He dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the blast, and grabbed a human settler who had frozen in shock. "You're safe now," Xylar said, his voice calm, but internally his mind raced with calculations and emotions he could barely name. He noticed Mara and Finn leading a small squad toward the canyon. luring a group of drones into a trap. The humans moved with speed and confidence, dodging attacks, improvising paths, and sometimes risking their lives in ways that defied logic. Xylar followed their lead, learning to trust instinct over computation, though his mind still ran constant simulations. A sudden scream echoed from a nearby alley. Xylar turned to see a group of settlers trapped behind a fallen wall. Drones were closing in, plasma cannons glowing as they targeted the humans. Xylar's chest tightened, a sensation he had never experienced before. Fear, real, intense, human-like fear. He realized it was not a weakness. It was a signal, sharpening his mind, telling him what needed to be done. He moved quickly, lifting heavy debris with his strength. The settlers followed him, their eyes wide with both relief and terror. One child, trembling and clutching a small stuffed toy, looked at Xylar as though he were a giant guardian. Xylar felt a surge of unfamiliar protectiveness. Logic suggested he could calculate the safest path, but instinct urged him to act immediately, putting himself at risk to save others. The drones advanced steadily, firing in rapid bursts. Xylar noticed their pattern, predictable yet deadly. Using the humans' chaotic tactics, he positioned himself and the settlers in narrow passageways where only one drone could approach at a time. Plasma fire hit walls, sending sparks into the air. Xylar felt heat on his skin, and for the first time he understood what humans called adrenaline. His heart, or the Vathari equivalent, raced and his focus sharpened beyond anything logic alone could provide. Mara shouted, "Now, Xylar! Lead them through the back corridor." Xylar hesitated for a fraction of a second, calculating probabilities. Then he felt it, fear and determination merging. He ran, moving as fast as his limbs could carry him, guiding the settlers through narrow passages over rubble and past hidden explosives set by the humans. Behind them, drones smashed into the barricades, but the humans' traps worked. One drone was destroyed in a fiery explosion, metal twisting and sparking, but the others advanced relentlessly. Xylar reached the end of the corridor, helping the settlers climb over a fallen wall. He felt the heat of nearby plasma blasts, smelled the faint tang of scorched metal, and heard the frantic breathing of humans around him. For the first time, he understood that fear was not just a warning. It was a force that could drive action, focus, and courage. Finn appeared beside him, a grin on his face despite the chaos. "You're holding up pretty well, Xylar. Not bad for your first real battle." Xylar did not respond immediately. His mind was still racing, processing the experience. He felt exhaustion, tension, and fear all simultaneously, but also a strange sense of exhilaration. Humans called it living fully. Logic had never given him this clarity of purpose. Another wave of drones arrived from the eastern ridge, larger and faster than the previous group. Mara quickly organized a defensive line, placing Xylar at the center to intercept incoming attacks. "Xylar," she said, "we need you to hold them here while we flank them. Trust your instincts." Xylar nodded, the word trust still foreign to him. He had always trusted data, calculations, and probability. Now he was learning to trust humans and his own instincts, an unfamiliar combination but effective. The drones advanced, firing in precise bursts. Xylar moved with speed, dodging plasma streams and countering attacks. He targeted weak points in the drone's armor, learned from the humans' improvisation, and used explosives strategically. Each drone he disabled increased his confidence, but the fear never left. It was sharp, constant, but manageable. It guided him, pushed him to act faster, and made him feel alive in a way he had never known. Suddenly, a massive drone, larger than the others and heavily armored, emerged from the ridge. It fired a sweeping plasma beam toward the barricade. Humans scattered, diving for cover. Xylar felt a wave of fear unlike anything before. This was a threat beyond probability calculations, something raw and unpredictable. For a moment he froze. Mara shouted, "Xylar, now!" He snapped out of the paralysis, acting not just with logic, but with instinct and courage. He ran directly toward the drone, dodging blasts, and used the environment to his advantage. Rocks tumbled down the slope, creating temporary barriers. Sparks flew, metal bent and shattered, and Xylar felt a strange thrill as he narrowly avoided death multiple times. Finally, Xylar found a weak point in the drone's armor. With a powerful strike, he disabled its main power core. The massive machine collapsed with a thunderous crash, sending shockwaves through the settlement. Xylar fell to the ground, breathing heavily, his body shaking from tension and exertion. Mara ran to him, checking if he was unharmed. "You did it, Xylar. You saved the barricade." Xylar's 4 eyes scanned the area. Other drones were retreating, their formation broken. The humans were cheering, tending to the wounded and regrouping. Xylar felt a mix of relief, exhaustion, and pride. Pride in the humans and in himself. He had acted with fear, courage, and instinct. And for the first time, he realized that fear could be a guide, not just a warning. As the sun rose higher over the colony, Xylar looked around at the humans he had fought alongside. Their faces were smudged with soot and dirt, but their eyes were bright with determination and life. He felt an unfamiliar warmth in his chest. He was no longer an observer. He was part of their fight. He understood something new. Humans were unpredictable, sometimes reckless, but their courage and heart made them extraordinary. He took a deep breath, the air filled with smoke and the scent of burning metal. Xylar understood that this day had changed him. The logic and calculations he had relied on all his life were now enhanced by a new element. Instinct driven by fear, courage, and human connection. Captain Mara approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We're not done yet, Xylar. More drones may come and the colony still needs protection. But you've proven you can fight with us, not just for us. That matters." Xylar nodded, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. He had faced danger, chaos, and fear, and for the first time he felt fully alive, fully connected to the humans he had once simply observed. The colony was battered, but it had survived another day. Xylar looked to the horizon, where distant mountains marked the path of future challenges. He knew the next wave of danger would be even greater, and he felt it. A sharp, thrilling, terrifying anticipation. Fear was no longer something he avoided. It was something he embraced. And standing with humans, Xylar realized, he had finally begun to understand what it meant to truly live.